Now let's go to the last parameter, which is deceleration, and which is where all of us get scared. When we look at deceleration, we think that the baby is affected. Now when you look at deceleration, there are three different types of deceleration: early deceleration, late deceleration, and variable deceleration. So if I just show you this picture, and if I ask you to identify which is early, late, and variable, you might not be able to tell me, because all of them look like there is a dip. So whenever there is a drop in the fetal heart rate of at least more than 15 beats per minute lasting for 15 seconds. So there's a drop in the fetal heart rate in the baseline. This is opposite of acceleration. We call it deceleration. Sometimes when there is bradycardia, that is reduced heart rate of the fetus, it is not necessary for you to define a deceleration with this criteria. Any small dip can also be taken as deceleration. But how do you term these decelerations as early, late, or variable? You need to look at the contractions. Without looking at the contractions, you cannot label the decelerations as to whether they are early, late, or variable. So always look at the uterine contractions for you to assess what kind of deceleration they are. Let me explain to you a little bit in detail. Now let's start with the first type of deceleration, which is early decelerations. So early decelerations are when the onset of the deceleration coincides with the onset of the contraction, and the trough or the lowermost part of the baby's heartbeat coincides with the peak of the contraction, and as the contraction dies down, the deceleration also comes back to the normal FHR. So these are deceleration that actually mirrors the contractions. So why does this happen? So during active labor, there is head compression onto the dilating cervix. Whenever the head is compressed against a dilating cervix, it will stimulate the vagal stimulation. The baby's brain's vagal pathway will be stimulated because of this head compression, and we know that vagus is a part of parasympathetic pathway, which will lead to a temporary drop in FHR. So we know that head compression will occur only during contractions. During contractions, because the fetus is pushed down, there will be head compression, there will be vagal stimulation, drop in FHR. When the contraction is relieved, again there is no head compression and the vagal stimulation will be cut off. So the baseline fetal heart rate will come back to its normal. Now what you need to remember about early deceleration is that these are normal, because the mechanism by which this causes deceleration is by vagal stimulation, and it is not because of decreased oxygen supply to the blood. That's the pathophysiology difference. So because it's vagal stimulation and it's temporary, it does not, early deceleration does not mean that the baby is compromised. It's a normal physiological thing, or the normal physiological finding that you see in CTG during active labor. However, please remember that if you notice early deceleration during latent phase itself, you might be a little wary, or you might be a little suspicious of things such as CPD, because early deceleration does not occur in very early stages of labor, like especially when the cervix is less than 4 cm dilated. These are findings that are typically seen in active labor, that is when the cervix is dilated to more than 4 to 6 cm.